Italy is on the verge of a decision that most people haven't fully grasped yet. This isn't a small policy change. It's a move that could redefine public life, national identity, and the very idea of sovereignty in one of Europe's oldest nations. Historians may look back on this moment and say, that was the turning point. The moment Italy chose whether its culture, law, and traditions would endure or be compromised. Because the Brothers of Italy party, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, is preparing a nationwide ban on its Muslim community, a sweeping measure that would touch schools, shops, and offices with fines reaching up to $3,000. A move so consequential it could redefine public life, challenge religious norms, and assert national sovereignty in ways Europe hasn't seen in decades. And this isn't just a European story. What happens here sends a warning to the world and to America, because the cultural, legal, and moral debates unfolding in Italy are happening everywhere. Public spaces, faith, and national identity are under pressure, and the choices leaders make now will echo for centuries. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not just European politics. It is a lesson in courage, principle, and the fight to defend civilization itself. Smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on notification, because we're about to reveal why this law could change the future of nations and why Americans should be paying close attention. Let's set the stage for why this ban in Italy matters, not just for Italians, but for anyone who cares about national identity, cultural cohesion, and the future of Western civilization. For decades, Europe has been wrestling with a fundamental question: integration versus separation, unity versus fragmentation. What do shared public spaces look like when cultures collide? And how far should religious expression go before it challenges the legal and cultural norms of a nation? In 2011, France became the first Western country to ban full-face veils like the burqa and niqab in public. Parliament overwhelmingly passed the law as a measure to protect secular values and societal cohesion, and an estimated 1,600 fines were issued in the years that followed, reinforcing the idea that visible identity and open interaction are essential to public order. Belgium, Denmark, Austria, Switzerland, and others have since taken similar actions, each citing the need to maintain social cohesion, security, and secular public life. Italy already had a general law from the 1970s prohibiting complete face covering in public, but it did not specifically mention religious garments. What the Brothers of Italy party is proposing goes much further, applying a nationwide ban on burqas and niqabs in schools, shops, offices, and streets, with fines up to $3,000 as part of a broader bill targeting cultural separatism and foreign influence. Andrea Del Mastro, one of the lawmakers pushing this legislation, captured the political and cultural stakes in a Facebook post when he said, "Religious freedom is sacred, but it must be exercised in the open, in full respect of our constitution and the principles of the Italian state." This phrasing is telling. It frames religious freedom not as absolute, but as conditional on integration with shared civic norms. A defense of public law and national tradition against what the bill's proponents call Islamic separatism. Think about what that means. Public spaces governed by shared principles, not by hidden practices or parallel cultural codes. It is an argument about who gets to define public life, the state and its majority values, or fragmented communities that operate on different norms. Across Europe, similar debates have ignited fierce disagreement. Supporters of bans argue that full face coverings hinder communication, public safety, and gender equality. Critics argue such laws infringe on religious freedom and target minority communities. But courts like the European Court of Human Rights have repeatedly upheld these bans, ruling they fall within state rights to promote social cohesion and protect living together. What's unfolding in Italy is not isolated. It's part of a broader continental trend in which secular states are pushing back against practices perceived to undermine social unity and national identity. And for Americans, it is a warning and a lesson. Once the question of public cohesion is ceded to divided cultural interpretations, the very fabric of civic life is tested. Stay with me, because next we're breaking down exactly why this bill strikes at the heart of national identity and why every patriotic citizen should pay attention. To understand what's happening in Italy, we need to zoom out. The state and its majority values, or fragmented communities that operate on different norms. This is not just about clothing, it's about culture, it's about law, and it's about whether different value systems can coexist in the same public space. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has been very direct about this. She has said there is a compatibility problem between certain interpretations of Islamic culture and the values that built Europe. Not Islam as a private faith, but Islam as a public, legal, and social system. Meloni has repeatedly emphasized this point. Religious freedom matters, but it cannot override constitutional law, and it cannot create parallel societies. In Europe and in the United States, public life is built on specific principles: freedom of speech, equality between men and women, secular law, transparency in public spaces. Meloni argues that some interpretations of Islamic practice conflict with these foundations, especially when religious rules attempt to govern public behavior, family law, or civic identity. That's where the tension begins. European nations are secular states. Law comes from constitutions, not religious texts. Citizens are equal before the law, regardless of belief. But when communities operate by separate cultural rules, leaders warn that integration turns into separation. Meloni has also raised concerns about foreign funding of mosques and cultural centers, arguing that outside governments should not shape Italian public life or values. Her position is simple but firm. Private faith is protected. Public life must remain unified. This is why countries like France, Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland, and now Italy have drawn clear lines in public spaces, not to target individuals, but to protect civic cohesion. Supporters of these laws argue that a society cannot survive with two legal cultures operating side by side. One nation, one legal framework, one shared public space. Critics say these policies go too far. Supporters say they don't go far enough. And that debate is now at the center of European politics, because at its core, this is not a religious argument. It is a civilizational one. And the question Europe is asking, quietly but urgently, is the same question America may soon face. Can a nation remain free, open, and unified if it no longer agrees on the rules of public life? That is what Italy's decision is really about. This Italian bill is not just about Italy. It is a blueprint for how nations defend their identity, values, and sovereignty. It tells governments everywhere, you can protect your culture, you can enforce laws that preserve public cohesion, you can stand firm against foreign ideologies that undermine national unity. For decades, liberal elites in Europe have struggled with the illusion that absolute cultural freedom can coexist with civic order. They assumed societies could absorb any practice, any belief, any separatist ideology without consequences. Italy's move shatters that notion. It recognizes a simple truth. Public life cannot function if some operate under a separate moral or legal code. Think about it. Schools, offices, streets, the shared spaces of a nation. If people are invisible, insulated, and guided by foreign influence, the integrity of the entire system erodes. Public trust weakens, civic cohesion falters, and eventually, citizens stop seeing themselves as part of the same nation. This is why patriots and conservatives should pay attention, because what Italy is doing is exactly what every nation needs to consider. It's about more than religious garments. It's about sovereignty, law, and shared values. Every decision about national identity carries consequences. Let foreign ideology dictate and the social fabric phrase. Uphold civic law and shared principles, and society strengthens. For Americans, the lesson is urgent. Our streets, schools, and public institutions are facing similar tests. Debates over assimilation, public expression, and the balance between freedom and national cohesion. History is clear. Hesitation invites fragmentation. Bold action preserves civilization. Italy is sending a message. The law comes first. Shared values come first. The survival of a nation depends on it, and America cannot afford to ignore it. Now let's set the stage for the real conflict. The battle lines are drawn and the stakes could not be higher. Picture this. On one side, foreign-funded ideologies and separatist movements operating in the shadows. Invisible, insulated, emboldened by hesitation, they push boundaries, erode shared norms, and quietly challenge the principles that hold a nation together. Their influence spreads like a virus, subtle, patient, corrosive. On the other side, Italy's state and patriots standing in the light. Lawmakers like Andrea Del Mastro and Sarah Kelleney are saying, "We will not compromise the principles that built our nation. Public space belongs to all citizens. Sovereignty cannot be outsourced." This is more than legislation. It is a moral firewall, a defense of women's rights, civic order, and national identity. It is about who controls public space, who sets the rules, and whose values define the culture. And here's where it gets personal. For Italians and for Americans watching, the metaphor is stark. Imagine the streets, schools, and offices of a nation as a shared living room. Every citizen has the right to enter, to participate, to contribute. But what happens if some enter unseen, guided by a foreign agenda, hidden behind veils that separate them from the social contract? The room loses its integrity, trust falters, and the cohesion that binds society begins to crumble. This is where tension escalates. Critics call the bill Islamophobic or say it targets religious freedom. Supporters call it common sense, sovereignty, and a defense of civilization itself. The stakes are enormous. Will national law enforce shared values? Or will foreign ideologies dictate who can participate in public life? Will women's rights be protected or left vulnerable to coercion and forced marriages? Will citizens see their public spaces as shared or fractured by secrecy and separatism? And here's the truth every patriot should feel in their bones. Hesitation has consequences. Every day that a nation tolerates hidden influence, division spreads. Every moment of passivity emboldens those who would undermine law, culture, and liberty. So here's my question to you. Do you believe governments should stand firm, defending public life and national identity, or retreat in the name of controversial tolerance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you believe in courage, in defending the principles that sustain civilization, hit the like button and subscribe. Because understanding this isn't just about Italy. It's about recognizing the battles that will shape our own nation if we fail to act. The conflict isn't over. Every law, every policy, every decision is a test of values. And for patriots, conservatives, and anyone who cherishes freedom, the choice is clear. Stand firm or risk losing the moral ground that holds a society together. Think about the last decade in Europe. Italy, like many Western nations, has faced waves of immigration and the rise of parallel communities, groups operating under foreign ideologies that sometimes conflict with national law and civic norms. For years, some argued, freedom of religion means total freedom, even in public spaces. And many turned a blind eye as cultural separation quietly grew. Schools, offices, streets, the shared public life of Italians was being challenged by practices that kept some citizens hidden, literally and symbolically, from the nation around them. Every day that went unchecked, the signal was clear. You can operate apart from our laws. You can impose foreign influence. You can weaken civic cohesion without consequence. But now, Italy is drawing a line. If this law passes, the message is unmistakable. Public spaces belong to all Italians. No foreign ideology will override national law. Women will be protected. Civic unity will be enforced. This is why the proposal from Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party is so significant. If it were just another bill, it would have been quietly debated and passed without fanfare. But they chose to make it bold. They chose to challenge the creeping separation that threatens national identity, which means Italy may soon redefine what it means to belong, publicly, legally, and morally, in ways it hasn't in generations. And that shift could reshape not just Italy's streets, schools, and offices, but the very principles that hold its society together. As the dust begins to settle over Italy's bold legislative move, one thing is clear. This is not merely a law about clothing. It is a declaration of national sovereignty, a reinforcement of civic cohesion, and a test of political will in the face of cultural pressures. Operationally, the proposed ban on the burqa and niqab, combined with stricter oversight on mosque funding and harsher penalties for forced marriages, establishes clear boundaries. It signals to foreign actors and domestic separatist groups alike, Italy will not tolerate ideological enclaves that operate outside the framework of its laws. The message is precise, deliberate, and strategically calculated. From a political science perspective, this is classic statecraft. As Max Weber emphasized, the monopoly on legitimate authority is the foundation of modern governance. A state that tolerates parallel legal or cultural systems risks fragmenting its authority and weakening social cohesion. By enforcing visibility in public spaces and transparency in religious institutions, Italy is asserting that sovereignty is inseparable from civic order. Hesitation in these matters invites the very instability the law seeks to prevent. Historically, Europe has faced similar crossroads. France's 2011 burqa ban was not merely about secularism. It was a statement about the primacy of national values over imported ideologies. Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland, and other nations followed suit, recognizing that unchecked separatism corrodes the moral and political fabric of society. Italy is now stepping boldly into this tradition, signaling that cultural cohesion and civic responsibility are non-negotiable. Strategically, the bill serves multiple objectives. Deterrence. It dissuades extremist groups and foreign actors from attempting to shape public life through ideology or funding. Empowerment. It reinforces the rights of women and families, codifying protections against coercion and forced marriages. Cultural preservation. It ensures that public life remains transparent, participatory, and anchored in shared principles rather than divided by secretive practices. The consequences are profound. For the Italian state, enforcing these norms strengthens legitimacy, builds public trust, and restores authority where ambiguity once prevailed. For citizens, it affirms that freedom, order, and national identity are intertwined, that rights exist within the framework of responsibility. And for the international observer, including Americans, there is a cautionary lesson. Nations that fail to defend their civic foundations gradually surrender them to ideology, foreign influence, and internal division. History is replete with examples. Rome fell not to external armies alone, but to the erosion of internal cohesion. The Weimar Republic crumbled under ideological fragmentation before tyranny took hold. Italy's move is therefore a moral and political turning point. It is a reminder that sovereignty, cultural integrity, and the protection of vulnerable citizens require courage and decisive action. Strength without principle is oppression. Principle without action is impotence. Italy's leaders are demonstrating that governance demands both. For patriots, conservatives, and anyone who values national identity, liberty, and the defense of shared values, the takeaway is urgent. Hesitation invites chaos. Bold action preserves civilization. Moral courage is not optional. It is the foundation of survival. This is more than legislation. It is a statement to the world. Civilizations endure only when their laws, values, and moral authority are defended without compromise. And here's the truth. What's happening in Italy is not just European news. The proposed burqa and niqab ban is part of a broader struggle. A fight over who controls public life, who sets the rules, and whose values shape a nation. Think of it as a 1-2 punch for civic integrity. 1. The state asserts that public spaces belong to all citizens, not to foreign ideologies. 2. It protects women, families, and communities from practices that undermine freedom and equality. If Italy succeeds, the message is loud and clear. Societies that hesitate to defend shared values invite division. Societies that act decisively preserve cohesion, order, and sovereignty. For Americans, the lesson is urgent. Look at your own cities, your own schools, your own neighborhoods. Are public spaces reflecting shared principles, faith, law, and liberty? Or are silent forces shaping culture from the shadows, eroding cohesion over time? Just like Italy, the moment to stand is now. Complacency abroad is a warning at home. Hesitation emboldens forces that would rewrite norms, weaken tradition, and chip away at freedom. This is more than policy. It's a moral turning point. A society that defends its foundations demonstrates courage, asserts sovereignty, and preserves liberty for the next generation. And for patriots, conservatives, and every American who values strength guided by principle, this is a call to reflect, to prepare, and to act. Because the world is watching. And history remembers the nations that chose courage over compromise and those that did not. Italy is at a crossroads. Europe is watching, and the stakes are higher than ever. Public law versus private ideology, national identity versus foreign influence, freedom versus secrecy. This isn't just about a single law. It is a test of who controls the shared spaces of a nation. Streets, schools, offices, public squares. Will they remain governed by transparent, enforceable laws rooted in national values? Or will hidden forces dictate the rules from the shadows? History provides a stark warning. Civilizations that tolerate division and secrecy, that allow foreign or ideological influence to override domestic principles, slowly erode the foundations that hold society together. Rome fell not in a day, but through decades of internal compromise and the abdication of civic responsibility. The lessons are clear. Courage matters, principle matters, action matters. What happens in Italy today is a signal for tomorrow, not just for Europe, but for any nation that prizes freedom, law, and shared identity. It is a warning that civilizations only survive when citizens and leaders choose principle over passivity, courage over fear, and national cohesion over division. Hesitation invites erosion. Decisive action preserves the moral and cultural fabric of society. For Americans, the lesson hits close to home. These debates about public expression, assimilation, and national identity are not distant foreign issues. They are mirror reflections of challenges that could arise anywhere, including our own cities, schools, and public spaces. Stay alert, stay informed, understand that freedom in public life is not granted. It must be defended. Every law, every policy, every decision carries a moral weight that shapes the society we leave for the next generation. I'll see you in the next video, where we continue to track the stories that matter most, stories that define the future of nations, the balance of freedom and law, and the principles we hold dear. Because these aren't just headlines, they are decisions that echo through history, and the time to pay attention is now.